Hello, and welcome back to another episode of We Bought a Mic, a podcast about the best movies of 2024. Listomania continues with our picks for the best cinematic films, our top 10 favorites.
Best cinematic films.
As opposed to like what other kind of films are you thinking?
Slop. Should we do top 10 slop?
We should do. You and Dane should host you, Dane, and Danny have a slop special. Pod, just slop pod.
Yeah, getting sloppy.
It's just you diving into episode by episode breakdowns of Dr. Odyssey.
Oh, baby, let's go. Now
I thought you were going to talk about like film, like you know, like the residue that can be left on a substance if it's like left outside. You can get sort of a film.
We're here. We're celebrating. We did albums last week with Danny, and now we're doing movies. Welcome. My name's Ernest.
My name is appreciator of the movies here at the movies. My name's Hunter.
And I'm Drew, and I'm here to dispel the notion that I didn't watch any movies this year.
You watched 10.
I watched quite a few this year, 2025.
Oh, okay.
From last year.
Wolf, the Wolfman is sounding off his picks early.
Jesus Christ.
Moo watched a lot of movies with me this year.
I thought you were going to say Moo only watched Wolfman. That's the only movie that he's ever seen.
2025.
That's why he's woofing.
Shout out to Adam, launched his new podcast feed, Films for Breakfast. I was on it talking Wolfman 2025. Will it make the next year's list? Will it make 2025's best of? Wait and see. 1 year.
What?
Or you can just listen to my thoughts on the film.
What kind of disaster would have to happen? What disaster would have to befall us?
I don't think you can say that right now.
Oh, I guess it's too soon. Not until Monday, at least.
Speaking of disasters, we'd be remiss not to mention the loss of a great titan of cinema who passed today as we're recording. Huge bummer. David Lynch has died at the age of 78. May you rest in peace, you fucking king, you legend. I hope it's good from your view up there, man.
Yeah. This death hit me more than any celebrity death that I can remember in like a long time. I was just like on a break at like taking my lunch at work. I was actually rewatching a movie that will make an appearance on my list later on, just trying to like catch some segments before coming in today. And Drew actually broke the news to me of just on the Discord that he
that's how I found out as well.
I truly I like didn't believe it. I was like looking through multiple sources of like, no, there's no way that he died, just because even though he had emphysema, I was like, no, but he's gonna live to be like 100 years old, because that's just kind of the essence that he had. This stuff like fucked me up.
It ruined your day.
Yeah, well, it's just like one of those things. Like David Lynch, like, I think if it wasn't for David Lynch, I don't think that like I'd be here today doing this podcast and being like somebody who appreciated movies as much. I remember back to high school, and friend of the pod, Colin, introduced me to David Lynch at this very receptive age of like 16-ish or so. And it's just like, hey man, you ever seen this guy David Lynch? Let's put on like Mulholland Drive and watch that together. And that reshape the way that I saw movies, not just as something that like you experience and you see, but as something that you feel, and is just like a mood that it sets that it sits you in. Of course, obviously, like everybody kind of associates David Lynch with like the dreamlike quality and the surrealism and everything else. But the Twin Peaks of it all, which I am wearing a Twin Peaks hat today in his honor.
Pour one out. It's
just a thing of like David was so much more than that. The way that his little humor that he had in dialogue scenes that he would have, like he made some of the most interesting choices with characters that you'll ever see, where from like afar, you're just like, this is what, like if an alien saw human beings interacting, this is how he would write dialogue taking place between them. But I think that always kind of left you in this suspended state while you are watching anything that he's creating.
Yeah. He spawned like 1 billion imitators and they all stink, or at least they're not as good as him. It's one of those, it's like, it's like,
hey, you keep Damon Lindelof's name out your fucking mouth.
Well, in terms of dialogue, I was thinking about like M. Night.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like,
this
is not a conversation, but Lynch, it's way different. Like he did I think a better job than almost anyone of capturing like what dreams feel like.
Yeah.
They don't make sense. He was okay with ambiguity. He was okay with confusing people.
Yeah.
He was just putting something forth and saying like, this is the product. Feel how you will. Cool guy. It takes like an insane amount of fearlessness to do that.
I love that we have such a deep catalog to look back on of his work. It doesn't feel like he had stuff left. I mean, he could have kept creating for a while, but I feel like when looking back at his works, we got a full life of artistry from him.
Yeah, and 78's, that's good.
Especially when bro was huffing stokes.
Yeah, he was ripping fucking heaters all day.
Yeah. It's just a thing where like, you are right. He did kind of do everything that you can.
I mean, he made the return like that. You can't ask.
I know. It's just the thing.
Better.
Like, you just kind of like look back over the last 25 years of his life, and we got 2 movies, I guess short story. So
post
3
return
movies, and then the return.
Oh yeah.
And then like some short films in there, some like
YouTube
artsy,
right.
some weather reports.
Yeah.
We got like little moments like that. But
today in Los Angeles, California.
It is such a bummer though that we didn't get at least like one more movie. Remember 2 years ago when it was just like,
Can
he's got something at Cannes that's coming out, and they
surprise
just
drop?
No, I don't.
Lynch
I'm just
gonna
here because I'm a fan of the movies.
I love the coast of France. It's a beautiful place.
It's pretty good, David. No, it's just one of those things where like he really did say everything that he needed to say through Twin Peaks. Episode 8, I think, is always just going to be held in regards as like one of the great Titanic achievements ever to be done with television or with just film in general. The moodiness of it.
I'll never forget watching episode 8 of Twin Peaks leading up to one of the first podcasts we did with Colin about that. At my old job that I was working at the time, I was in the office alone. I think I came in on a weekend. There was literally nobody there. And I was in a windowless room, and I shut the door and I turned the lights off. No lights in a windowless room. The only light was the glow of the computer screen that I was watching it on with headphones on.
Yeah.
Just completely locked in, getting my mind blown.
And you know what's crazy is that like Lynch, like I mentioned, like he opened me up to this whole other world of film, but not only just like film. Lynch kind of changed what my opinion was on lots of art, like what you can do with sound and just creating a soundscape. This whole idea of almost like, I almost want to say like anti-art. It's
avant-garde.
Yeah, it's something that it's not inherently beautiful, but you can find the beauty within it. Something that is a little bit rough, something that is a little bit darker. I think that of all of Lynchisms, like one of the things that gets lost is his fascination with human beings and with humanity. That is in between all of the dream sequences and everything else. That's something that's littered throughout his career. Everything from something that is like him just trying to make his version of Wizard of Oz in a fucked up way
over and over
but most explicitly something like Wild at Heart, where he's like, what is love? I want to interrogate what this whole idea of love is to him. Trying to a movie that I think is the most forgotten of his whole catalog, Straight Story, which is a Disney movie about trying to reconnect with like your long lost brother. David very clearly always had this interrogation that he wanted to have with like what the human consciousness was and with what our humanity was with each other. As we're all just guys, we're all just people with consciousness living these parallel lives from each other that they intersect here and there as we have these interactions with one another. But we're so stuck in this tunnel vision that we can get to from time to time, and taking that extra moment to kind of show a little bit of light in other people that you might necessarily spend the time to look at. Like I think that most explicit version of that is in David's final project that he made on YouTube, which is this YouTube series that came out last year, where it's a series of interviews that he did with people across the country. A lot of them like homeless people or impoverished people. And it's just them talking with them and having them tell their life story. It's not a huge whole thing. It's not trying to send any kind of explicit message of like, make sure that you always like look at what this country has done to these people or anything like that. It's just acknowledging that that's another human being who's lived this whole life before this moment that you interact with them right now. They came from somewhere. They were born from somewhere. They loved someone in the past. They had a first job. And I think a lot about that whenever I'm thinking about like the way that people do treat homeless people, or all kinds of people that you interact with all the time that you just want to kind of
anyone that we try to push out of the box of civilization and society, that we try to other,
or just try and other from your own social groups, like just anything like that. We're always kind of othering. And I think that that's one thing that David was always trying to look a little bit further into, peel under the covers of trying to tear down those walls, even if it is something that is very uncomfortable, what tearing down those walls of social norms might mean. Shout
out to Kyle McLaughlin, who wrote a beautiful little, I guess, eulogy of his friend, David. You can go on social media and on the internet and read the whole thing. But I thought this little piece at the end was so beautiful. He says, "I can see him now, standing up to greet me in his backyard with a warm smile and big hug and the Great Plains honk of a voice. We talk coffee, the joy of the unexpected, and the beauty of the world, and laugh. His love for me and mine for him came out of the cosmic fate of two people who saw the best things about themselves in each other. I will miss him more than the limits of my language can tell and my heart can bear. My world is that much fuller because I knew him, and that much emptier now that he's gone. Beautiful, beautiful, touching little write up by
a writer.
Yeah,
my goodness. If you guys died, I don't know. I don't know how many words I would give. Like, I'm not signing up for like Twitter Premium,
Chat GPT, right? My friend,
my close friend and podcast co-host just died.
He used to make quinoa and smoke cigarettes.
I did suggest that we all smoke a cigarette on the pod. I don't know if you or your wife would actually consent to that, because we're basically inside of your home right now.
Huff in the garage.
Also, cigs are I find them like absolutely disgusting. I hate them.
Okay, well, I guess you just won't ever be as
true,
cruel as David.
True American beauty and spirit.
Yeah,
with tobacco. Shout out to David Lynch. A real one.
Roll yourself a spliff tonight. Hold the weed.
One of the best to ever do it. All right. Let's get into our top 10 movies of 2024. It's 2025. We always wait until January to do this. Fuck all the other normies out there who do it in the last month of the year. January is the perfect time to do it. There's nothing going on.
It's because it's after December.
Right.
So the year
is over,
has passed.
Yeah. So
remember 2 years ago when everybody all the publications put out their best albums of the year, and then SZA released a new album. So then the following year they were like, no, wait, no, we also like that one too.
But it was December 30th release. Yeah. So if you're new here,
wouldn't do that.
The way we do this is we don't know each other's lists. It's a big surprise. And if we have overlap, we wait until whoever has it the highest to have the discussion. We'll share some quick thoughts on the year in film. It seemed at the beginning of the year like it was going to be an incredibly thin lineup of film. And now that we're at the end, I am very happy with this crop of movies. It turned out to be very, very strong. I do think it is going to maybe be a little bit top heavy. There's probably going to be a ton of overlap in the top 5 is my guess. But otherwise, I am really pleased with the films that came out. A lot of variety, a lot of strong, new, exciting voices. And just like every year, I try to watch as much as possible. I try to really cram. And it becomes kind of a disheartening process to narrow it down to 10, because looking at my 11 through 20, I love all these movies, and it was extremely difficult to leave them out of the top 10. So once again, the honorable mentions, where my honorable mentions heads at, Rise Up. That's going to be a place to shout out a lot of good stuff that I enjoyed throughout the year. And I'm just excited to celebrate these movies. I'm really, really happy with the group. What do you guys think of the year in film?
I've seen a lot more than you, Hunter. I hate to say it.
Yeah. You have a lot more.
What's the count at? 105?
No, it's low. I saw 15 movies that came out in 2024 that I would call good.
Okay.
And that's
really all you need.
well, that's pretty solid. Yeah. I have enough that I like my top 10. I think it's one of those years, like, you know, you're speaking in terms of, you know, it's been a great year overall, you know, better than it was looking. A lot of like access is an issue for a lot of these movies, you know,
And still now in January where, you know, you should be able to just rent stuff online. A lot of these you still can't, and they're not even in theaters.
Exactly. Not in theaters, tough to find. I know that there are some foreign, like really, really great films that came out, which are all, you know, they're always going to be viewed less. Didn't even get to delve into documentaries. I don't know if any are going to pop up here.
I actually think it was a really weak year for documentaries. There's a couple that I enjoyed, but personally, I was not the biggest fan of the docs this year because I tried
Wired,
to put, I tried to
fiction,
put,
tired reality.
Right. It's almost like we need to escape our current situation.
So yeah, I think a lot of people might be like, was it a good year for movies? You know, if you're not as plugged in, I'm sort of the blue collar cinema fan of the pod,
man of the people.
Yeah, hey, guess what? I don't want to like have to schedule 3 days off work just so I can see The Brutalist once.
Much less twice.
Yeah. I mean, my fucking God.
I might go a third time.
Stuff like that. And, you know, I'm not entitled to the screener culture that you two enjoy. And these guys play by the rules.
Yeah, we're elite.
I'm not getting their fucking
that we enjoy.
I'm not getting sloppy seconds on like the shitty DVDs you guys get with a watermark on every important moment.
You don't enjoy that? Like every single time you're like
random code,
brutal scene. Yeah. It's like property of Ernest Calderon. Do not sell.
Yeah, I ended up liking a lot of movies this year.
Yeah.
Good year.
I think that like in hindsight, we tend to always, whenever we do these movie years, like in the moment, we're like, well, if I look at my top 10, I think it was a good movie year. But then like as time goes on, we get a little bit more removed. I will say, I think that this is one of the weaker years that we've been doing the pod, especially.
There's a lot of slop.
There's a lot of slop. There's a lot of stuff. And maybe also this is a little bit personally me and like where I was in life, but I found that some of my favorite movies of the year are movies with very clear fundamental flaws. But I think that like what they executed on, like what they were going for was either so audacious that I just had to like applaud it, or it's something that what did work for it, like so heavily overshadowed the very clear flaws, whether it's like a stylistic choice or a storytelling choice or something like that, that like I just appreciate that they went for it in other parts.
I 100% agree with that.
I don't know. I feel like I haven't necessarily felt that way in years past, where it's more like these films were technically perfect and I enjoyed them. There's a lot of movies on here that just like, I was like, hell yeah, brothering myself through it. Like I was just having a great time. And not to say like that they're all like 1 through 10 of twisters, but like it's something that it is just like you gotta have your fun whenever you're watching these movies, especially if it is something that like there isn't as much true blockbuster popcorn fun. Like I don't really think that there's
the blockbusters were really rough this year.
Looking at my list, I think that there is one movie that made over $120 million on my entire list.
Were there worms in it? Big worms?
I guess we'll have to wait.
Large, medium sized,
maybe grande. Guy who thinks that Dune and Wicked are the same movie.
Yeah.
I will say, though, I get what you're getting at. It's kind of lopsided.
Well, and I did want to say, like, I don't think I say that about like the quality overall. I think that this year is like a truly special year for horror. This is the best year for non-studio horror movies that I can remember. And we're going to talk about whenever we get to the list, but
some all-timers.
Not just some all-timers, but it's just like a deep bench of them. Like even just going down the line, I won't necessarily spoil like what's in the list and what isn't, but like even something like when you're talking about The Substance, when you're talking about Nosferatu, when you're talking about even something that is like, has a lot of elements of horror. Yeah, the traps of the world. The I Saw the TV Glows, the Red Rooms, I had Alien Romulus, I think is like a pretty fun movie, even if it is, again, another movie that's got like a lot of flaws to it.
Hey,
So-
man, I was pretty horrified by some things in that film.
Yeah, that's the true horror. And also, I mean, the other big thing that everybody's talking about is like, this is kind of the year of the musicals spearheaded by Wicked at the forefront, but Amelia Perez and
Which we haven't seen.
Amelia. Yeah, no, I've also seen it yet. Please don't yell at us.
Or yell at us. Come yell at us.
Yeah, come yell at us.
Comment down below.
Listen, I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to check it. I'm excited to see what everybody's a buzz about. Moana 2's even.
There's a lot of stuff
if you want to go artsy.
still in my to watch list that maybe could have had an outside shot on this list. Stuff like maybe Saturday Night or Heretic.
Scared to watch Saturday Night because it's always sad when something has awards buzz before it comes out and then immediately it all goes away.
Yeah.
That's one of the...
It won the TIFF Audience Award.
Which is crazy.
And then poof, evaporate.
Again, Canadians. Well, what is wrong with you guys?
No, I think it's more so of a thing of they released it and felt like, wow, we're going to get the buzz at TIFF. And then like all the kids are going to be clamoring to see it. And guess what? Kids don't give a fuck about SNL, which is kind of the problem.
I don't know.
SNL that they're having right now.
All of my Gen Alpha coworkers are talking about Gilda Radner.
Yeah.
Wow.
But hey, I will say Saturday Night, if it's a movie that you just go into it with the mindset of like, I just want to go have a fun time.
You saw it?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a fun time at the movies. I had a good time with it. Was it ever going to be like a good like pick for Best Picture? No.
Is your stock in Gabriel LaBelle still you haven't liquidated?
Gabriel LaBelle and Rachel Sennett.
We're climbing.
Incredible.
Okay.
In that movie. I will say great impression work in that movie. Like it is just a guy where you're like, yeah, no, that guy's just like doing the Chevy Chase thing and he's doing it really well. So like,
the dude from May December.
Yeah.
That's impressive to me because he doesn't have the look. I know that they like zhuzhed him up, but I was like, no, Chevy Chase was like crazy hot.
Yeah, he's hot.
Yeah.
And then they also their Dan Aykroyd is like a famously hot actor that like girls love, and Dan Aykroyd is like an ugly like troll of a man.
I will say Dan Aykroyd, they do make him pretty hot. There's no like uglifying that guy, but you know, well.
The most popular movie on Letterboxd that from this year that I haven't seen is probably Gladiator 2.
I haven't had a chance to either.
Speak on that.
No,
What's wrong with you?
I just haven't locked in. It was one of those where I didn't get the screener, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go to the theater.
Not happy with certain historical alterations that have been made.
I have not seen the film. I am excited to check it out when it hits Peacock.
I bet Ernest never thinks about
what is it? Paramount Plus. It'll be on there.
Yes.
Also didn't get a chance to see We Live in Time, the Andrew Garfield, Florence Pugh cancer movie. So jury's out.
Why didn't you check that one out? That didn't seem like right at the top of your watch list.
Didn't find a good moment mood wise.
I had it written down as something to do the Watch Mojo breakdown of the accuracy of the cancer experience. And then I kept thinking to myself, like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I was like, wait a second. I don't want to do that.
I like to think of you at like a real point of weakness, just like holding in your hands two discs. One of them is We Live in Time and the other one is The Apprentice. And you like can't figure out which one is going to have a bigger
which one's going to hit more
on you.
I'll get around to it eventually. I mean, to just kind of cover the bases of like my movie watching during chemo, I couldn't go to the movies when I was going through chemo. I had to be very selective with my movie watching. And there were a couple movies where I did venture out to the theater, pick a time slot that was very, not very populated, mask up and prepare. And I don't think those movies are necessarily going to be on my list, but I'll remember them as movies that I put myself out there to brave the theatrical experience in the depths of chemo. And then once I finished chemo and started to get better, I think that a lot of the movies that I watched in the last like 3-4 months after being in remission, I think are actually going to be the ones that are going to stick with me more because I feel like my headspace is a lot more prepared to
make sense.
to accept that.
I'm imagining Ernest risking like fatal infection to go watch Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Dude, literally, I literally did that. And I was like,
Tough.
no, that was worth it. No,
Hey, listen, I didn't mind that movie, but
it's not bad.
I'm glad you're I'm glad you're here, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made it.
I shouldn't have gone to see
Yeah.
that was not worth it.
Jesus.
But yeah, there's a couple, you know, we'll probably shout them out at the end because they're not like the big ticket items, but movies that I thought were going to define the year for me and didn't. And I think looking at my list, kind of what you were getting at, it is a little lopsided. It does sort of fall off. I have 67 movies on my Letterboxd list, and right around the 40 mark, maybe 45, it starts to like drastically drop off. And there's a solid chunk right in the middle there of movies that I basically give like 4 stars or 3.5 stars that, you know, maybe could make the top 10, especially like the number 10 slot or the number 9 slot. But there's just a lot of flaws in a lot of movies and things that I think work really well. So maybe to shout out a couple of them, like a movie like Love Lies Bleeding or Juror Number 2 or Kinds of Kindness or Late Night with the Devil, movies that I think have incredible components that don't quite get there and things that are worth shouting out. And we're going to have the WBAMs where we get a chance to really dig into some of those things.
You know what's worth shouting out though is movies in our top 10s.
Oh my God. Okay. Drew wants to transition to
Drew's
the list.
like, it is getting late.
All right, Drew. It's top 10 time. Why don't you start us off with your number 10?
Don't make me do that. My number 10 is a movie that I think is really flawed. I ended up putting it over movies that I think are less flawed because it stuck with me stylistically. Furiosa.
Hey, nice. I was really hoping this would make your list.
It didn't. I didn't think it would, especially watching it at home. I automatically, it's one of those movies where watching it, you're like, oh, this is not meant to be watched here. It just simply would have been so much,
this was
so
actually one of the ones
theater.
that I did brave the theater during chemo, and I'm glad I did. It hit.
So a lot has been already said about they added a lot more traditional story elements into this movie than the first one had, Fury Road. They also, the CG is a lot more noticeable at points in this movie. It has a bit more of a sleek look in general.
More digital, maybe.
Yeah, more saturated for sure. Like it's crazy saturated.
Well, I think especially the visuals that are almost lifted from Fury Road, like the War Boys, the actual Fury Road itself, the war rig, those are easier to compare. But the stuff that you don't see in Fury Road, all the new stuff, I think the different look lends itself incredibly well.
Exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of it ends up working out great. And some of the story elements, even, I was like, you know what? I'm glad that there's a little bit more going on here.
Yeah. Chris Hemsworth.
Well, that's the main thing. Chris Hemsworth is for me personally, he's giving something that I like more than what anyone was doing in Fury Road. Yeah. I know that Fury Road is a lot more understated and is a lot more quiet of a movie. Like we're not getting just like fucking loads of dialogue.
No, he is hamming it. Yeah. He's chewing it.
He is fucking awesome. He's so funny.
That nose, baby.
I cannot get the final, spoiler, like showdown in the true like liminal space desert, which is him and her. And it just keeps going and going. It's like 10, 15 minutes. He's so good.
George Miller has said that scene is how he auditioned Fury Road because there's no real dialogue in Fury Road. Yeah. So to find his cast for Fury Road, he already had that scene when he made the previous movie. That's how crazy this guy is, how built out this world is in his mind.
I know. And that's what makes it so sad that like what you guys are saying about like you just had to see it in a movie theater. No
People
one fucking did. And that
I
blows
didn't.
so hard.
Yeah.
Like people didn't see it in theater to the point that it's considered, I don't know if it's a bomb, but it wasn't financially successful. And this is probably George Miller's last movie. Like he's 79 years old and it takes him. I don't think he's got another Fury or another Mad Max movie in him based on how much shit and how long and time consuming these things are to make, and the fact that it wasn't financially successful, which is a bummer because I do think this movie is special. It like sits in my teens, and it's kind of just one of those movies that I watched in the theaters and I was like, that was great. And then you start watching more things and it just starts to kind of like peter down, down.
But it's so good.
Moments of it still stick out in my head, like the Bullet Town, everything that's happening.
Bullet Town is so good.
And that's one thing that people, that scene in particular is one that people shit on the CGI for. I think that the special effects in that whole sequence look incredible. The set itself of like this whole like circling you as you're like kind of funneling
the sense of geography. I mean, he's the master of that.
Yeah, it's really, really impressive. I ended up really enjoying Tom Burke as Praetorian Jack.
He's really good.
Like he's delivering like the quiet, like understated.
Well, he teaches Furiosa how to be Furiosa.
Yeah, and it's one of those, you know, if you're not paying attention, you're like, this guy's giving nothing, and then you really watch and you're like, he's performing here. Yeah. Like he's dialed. Love Anya Taylor-Joy.
Praetorian Jack. Are you kidding me with that name?
It's so good.
That's so cool.
Anya rocks. She is doing a little bit of a Charlize impression.
Absolutely.
And
I also
mostly is like incredibly convincing.
So I'm sure there's probably a canonical answer to this. Charlize and Anya are Australian. Why aren't they just talking Australian?
Charlize is South African.
What's the fucking difference?
Yeah,
don't get into it. Don't get into it.
Okay. I was gonna say, do you want to like explain colonialism right now?
And I think Anya is Argentinian.
No fucking way. Yeah. Neither of I'm
the only Australian is
I'm 0 for 2.
Yeah. Listen, Hemsworth is an Aussie.
If Anya's Argentinian, we got to check out where her grandparents were in the 40s. Okay?
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Parents are Scottish, Spanish of Anglo-Argentinian descent.
God damn, that's brutal on my part.
Yeah, God.
Tough look.
It's Southern Hemisphere, you know, it's fine. It's all sort of near there.
You can say that.
If
right?
it's not here, it's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
America first, baby.
That sucks. Woof. Anyway,
talk about wolf, man. Woof, woof.
Generally speaking, I think you're right. It's a lot of moments. It's a lot of visuals. It's a lot of sequences. As a movie, there's too much meat on the bone. Absolutely. Story wise, there's a shitload that they're throwing.
Many years spanned.
So pacing wise, it can feel off at times. There's one point where I think she falls off her bike, passes out towards the end, and she wakes up in this fucked up, like this couple's cellar where they have all these dead bodies they're harvesting.
Yes, the maggot farmers. This movie rocks.
And it's so disturbing. Cool. It's so fucked up looking, and it all happens in like the blink of an eye. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck?
There's a whole world underneath.
Yeah, it's so you can just tell they had to keep it moving. But overall, I think it's worth your time. I don't think it deserves its full on reputation, because I think mostly what you hear is like, oh yeah, it's like a worse version of the first one.
Well, you called it a PS2 video game adaptation of the Mad Max world. It's more like a PS4 version, Mad Max game.
Not the actual PS4 Mad Max game.
Right. But close enough. Close enough that, allusions there.
Yeah.
Great pick. So glad it's represented in this episode. Very, very worthy, very deserving. This movie, I hope time will be kind to it. Shout out to George Miller. Shout out
first of all, I'm sorry. Time is not going to be kind to any movie at all. No one's going to be able to watch movies. We can't, like, sitting through a movie to a lot of people is like, oh, you like, so you guys like watch movies and you talk about them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, time will be kind to none of this. Time will not be kind to us.
Screening,
we will be gone.
The screening of The Brutalist at the Enzian was sold out, Drew. It was packed. It was fucking packed.
It was packed. And I mean, we should talk about, there was that one guy who's just like projecting Subway Surfers on the screen right next to it, but it's good.
Shout out to the lady playing Furiosa's mom. I thought she was a standout. Great scene to start the film.
Yeah.
Furiosa is Drew's number 10 Hunter, let's just keep it moving. Let's go to you, number 10. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God.
Cuckoo. Cuckoo. Cuckoo.
Wicked.
And what's your name, little angel?
Who's the almost birthday girl?
Who's the almost birthday girl? My number 10 is Longlegs.
Nice. Hell yeah.
So this is one of those movies that, man, I see the flaws. And brother, I just don't fucking care. I feel similar to Longlegs, and I don't think it's as good of a movie as this, but as I did whenever I saw Malignant, whenever it first came out, where it's like Oz Perkins knows exactly what he is doing and the tone that he is trying to strike in this movie. And I think he fucking nails it, of finding the balance between this eerie, demonic, twisted version of like a Silence of the Lambs story, and also making it funny. Like, this movie is like very funny at several different points. Standout number one being Nicolas Cage giving, I think, the best Nicolas Cage performance in 15, 20 years. Like, I think this is in his top 10 performances ever. I didn't think that he still had this in him, to be perfectly honest.
Hey, Pig was good.
Yeah, I think Pig is really good. But
I'll take this over Pig.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is Nick Cage. Like,
you probably have to go back to Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. I'm not joking.
A classic.
I honestly
Shout out to Javi in the Discord right now.
That's the last time that we saw Cage even like somewhat trying to dial into this tone exactly that we get to in this movie. I think it's a fucking blast, man. Like, it is just something that's very, very good. Micah Monroe, who plays the titular Lee Harker, who's at the center of this movie, is someone who, like, I don't really know completely how to wrap my head around her, or like her performance. I would kindly call it as her playing neurodivergent is like what she is trying to do here. But again, talking about, it's all about somebody who is at the helm, who knows the type of movie that he is trying to make. I think he nails it.
This movie didn't click with me. I may try it again.
You aren't alone. A lot of people this did not click with.
Yeah, I found myself, and it's on my, list of the 15 good movies I saw. Absolutely. Like, I enjoyed my time with the movie. One thing I really like is he's very good at what I would call like artful jump scares. Like, the flashing white imagery stuff is like visually like gorgeous and well thought out, but it also is just hitting you with like sound and visuals in a way that freaks you the fuck out.
Yeah. It's doing the jump scare thing.
He's really good at that. I think he's better at visuals than he is at
the visuals are incredible.
Writing.
The shots are phenomenal.
I just had problems with the writing.
The story really confounded me, and when the movie ended, I had way too many questions. I didn't feel like it wasn't
on
like
the day
a
of David
satisfying.
Lynch's death. You're complaining about having questions.
Well, I think it might be one of those that will definitely benent from a rewatch, know, especially given the reveals of her, her mother, the backstory there, like kind of retreading the story on a rewatch might be worthwhile. It's just on the first watch, I was expecting something different. I don't know. Maybe it's on me.
So it's funny that you left the movie with questions. There is a kind of exposition-y dump at the end that I did not like because it provided too many answers.
I was going to say, I was kind of left with like not enough questions.
That's more where I'm at. I didn't have any questions at all. I knew exactly where it was and what the movie was, and I almost wanted more ambiguity there. I will say, as far as like, because I do think that there is this central mystery that's kind of happening, but it does all kind of tie back to Longlegs himself. And minor spoilers for Longlegs, I won't get into the very end, but I think that Oz Perkins' smartest choice that he made in this movie is trying to twist our perverted idea of serial killers in 2025 now. And now there is this, and there's another movie that I'm going to talk about later in my top 10 that also does a version of this where there is this, spoilers, there is this fascination that we as a society have with the true crime genre, with like this glorifying men, usually men who have done horrible, heinous things. It is happening literally right now with a monster that we went to school with who is on death row right now, who I will name nameless, but he might have a name synonymous with a Marvel character. Then we'll leave it at that. Somebody we went to school with right now, but you'll see people who are actively just like,
what happened to old Tony Stark? He was my favorite basketball teammate.
What is this, the Ant-Man story?
What happened to
this, the Thor killer?
Our old friend Anthony Mann?
I didn't know there was some kind of Hulkbuster out there.
What is this, the Wolverine slasher?
Remember that group of that one lunch table that called themselves the Avengers?
Guess they got a different lunch table behind bars these days. So
what are we? Yeah, what is this?
I think there's like this really gross, it's like internet culture thing of like these people who are like throwing themselves and they're like, I could fix him. Like, I just love him. He's so hot. And the choice to make the central, like scary, the big bad of this movie, somebody who is so gross and disgusting looking, and like not even like he's like gross in like a evil way or anything like that. He's literally somebody who listened to too much T-Rex. He listened to so much rock and roll that he heard the devil talking to him in the rock and roll music. Like, and then he just like wanted to make himself a hair metal guy and got a bunch of like bad plastic surgery. That is the central character that we're having here. Is such a smart idea to have in something that feels so fresh that I was really all on board for it.
And guess what, girlies? If you don't think you could fix him, you need to dream a little bigger. Mm-hmm. I could fix him.
Mm-hmm. You could fix Longlegs.
He's mother to me.
Okay. All right.
Listen, I'm telling you, if you guys watch this movie again and like almost view it as like a comedy, watch it like you would Malignant and just like, he knows that this is funny.
Okay.
Then I think that you can appreciate more.
But Malignant was funny.
I think Longlegs is very funny.
I mean, Cage is funny. Yeah. There's a lot of.
There's not enough Cage.
I think that
there's a ton of quiet.
I think that the sheriff or the head police guy is very funny in his scenes. Shout out to big old painting of Bill Clinton to signify that this is the 90s.
No, that is fun.
Yeah.
One issue that I genuinely could not get out of my craw, early in the movie, they introduce the idea that psychics do exist in this world. And she is one. She has psychic abilities. They have a really limited analog understanding of how it works psychically. They have like they have a diagnostic test for psychics that seems like it's like a mental illness test.
Oh yeah.
That is
projection room.
Such a cool, soft sci-fi thing. It's immediately completely thrown away.
Well, it's because it's used by like the government. So it's just like, well, what can you do to help catch this?
Well, then don't tell me about it because you're telling me about a better movie. And then you're going into
I thought the same thing.
And then you're going into something that I love the Cage stuff. A lot of the other stuff is kind of derivative of like, the young blonde sent in to like solve a case thing.
Yeah.
It's doing the Silence of the Lambs thing. But I think that there is like a lot of humor in some of kind of the quiet moments. And again, just even like you guys shouted out too, but some of the visual imagery in this movie, I'm thinking specifically of a sequence with a doll in a mirror, and a sequence with a cloaked
incredible.
Like it's shrouded face.
Yeah. It's so upsetting.
It's so effective. It's some of like the best horror imagery that I've seen in years.
Yeah, like it gives you like the animal instinct, like I got to get out of here. Like it genuinely, and that's why I had a hard time rating this movie, because I don't have as much experience with movies that are truly meant to upset you like that. Yeah. And this movie isn't overall, like you said, there's a lot of humor. There's a lot of like kind of like dry, like by the book stuff going on here. Mm-hmm. But then those moments, I'm like, well, shit, I don't think it gets much better than that in terms of scares. Like I'm fucking horrified right now. That all worked awesome.
I'm very interested to see what Oz Perkins does.
Hey, Monkey.
He has a movie called The Monkey, a new Stephen King adaptation.
Is it a Robbie Williams sequel movie?
Yes.
Is it about his time in the boy band, which I just found out about today? Not only was
Better Man.
Yeah.
Apparently it's good.
Not only does Robbie Williams have an insanely successful solo British career, which I've known about. He also was in a
You're
highly
like one Americans that actually
I know.
apparently.
He was also in a highly successful British boy band, and they also suck. Okay,
What's
Robbie,
the boy band called?
you get no movie, Robbie. I don't care if it's good. I've heard that it's good.
What's the boy band called?
You don't know? It's gone.
Okay.
It's so gone.
Longlegs
suck, dude.
is-
I tried today.
Longlegs
suck.
Hunter's number 10. It's time for my number 10, which changed so much in the last few weeks. I had so many different permutations of my list, looking at my 11 through 20. Basically, all the movies that I gave 4 stars to could go in this slot. And today, I made one final change, and I locked it in. My number 10 is Alex Garland's Civil War.
Drew, was that on your 15 good movies?
It wasn't on my list of like need to watch.
An incredibly divisive film. I got made fun of last year for putting Maestro at my number 10 slot. I don't give a fuck. I am here to protect the artist, to protect the will of a man from Britain to try to tell Americans what their country is.
Let me tell you, or let me ask you this: how much did did Civil War rise on your list? A film about war photography after the photo of Trump getting shot at the rally.
It wasn't
Does that
just,
like you just see the person in the crowd who like fell over? Like, what have I done?
It wasn't just that moment. It's every moment since then. It's the election. It's Luigi. It's all of it, man. Like we have gone through the looking glass and then another looking glass and then another looking glass to the point where the events of this film are still very ridiculous and silly, but so is our current reality. And this movie feels like a warning. It feels like a visceral warning, and it takes this incredibly harsh and ugly look at our country and how quickly we can give in to our worst impulses.
So where were you at with Men?
Men, I thought was a stumble, but I thought that there was some redeeming qualities. Ultimately, the movie doesn't work, but I was able to find little shreds of good things. And it has the most audacious finale of like any movie the last 5 years. It is a bonkers, just like final sequence. Civil War overall, I think is, like I said, a very flawed movie, but there's just like a tenacity to it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not silly and that there's not aspects of it that are just preposterous and unbelievable, but it absolutely is. But the way it juxtaposes its subject matter in such a provocative way, it demands so much thought and so much discussion, because I have not been able to stop thinking about this movie in the wake of the election and in the rise of just the collapse of our society. Like, we are living through a slow motion apocalypse, and the way this movie depicts this conflict, it turns it inside out in a way where it doesn't give you the easy answers, and it doesn't want to explain why any of this happened, but it just shows you that once it does, there's no turning back. And on the eve of Trump's second inauguration, it just rings so true. Like, we are recording this just mere days before he starts his second term. When you look at the president character in this movie, it is very silly. The Nick Offerman character, but it's so silly with how relevant it is. It's so hilariously relevant and ominous. They say that he like outlawed the FBI and he started drone striking American citizens. And that sense of dread and doom is just so thick and palpable in this film. And it's thick and palpable in our own world. Every day we're feeling this. And shout out to fucking Kirsten Dunst, whose performance in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. And she carries that sense of doom, that sense of dread. She's a zombie clawing for some kind of humanity and some kind of life. She embodies this demeanor, this attitude of so many Americans today who are so resigned to their circumstances, but just unwilling to stop moving forward. Mm-hmm. Like, you just have to keep pushing until you absolutely cannot. And ultimately, I think Garland, what he's trying to do is he's trying to sort of make some kind of indictment on the objectivity of journalism and photojournalism, and kind of ask the question of, is objectivity even a thing? Or are we always going to be subjective? Are we going to be subjective in every scenario? And is this field of journalism that says that it's objective always going to be subjective? And it's kind of trying to raise that question in the way these characters move through the world, and how we see them be almost like adrenaline junkies chasing this next hit of trying to put themselves in increasingly dangerous situations. They like it. They want this. There is a personal gratification component to this.
You know what I'm saying? Fucking Twisters over here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just been thinking a lot about this movie. Is it better than like half the movies in my 11 through 12 that I put it ahead? Probably not. But I wanted to make a little bit of a statement with my top 10. And I think that as we enter Trump 2.0, I'm only going to be thinking about this movie more and more. I think it's a flawed masterpiece.
I really like the things that you said about this movie. I did not enjoy Civil War. I did not think that was a very effective movie, personally, for me. And I think it's funny that you talk about the objective and the subjective. I found this movie like deeply frustrating on how apolitical it is in points.
Yeah, it doesn't take a stance.
It is so afraid to make a stance in anything. And you cannot have a movie about the importance of subjectivity and then try to be non-subjective in your story matter. Like, I found that just a very, very frustrating conceit of the story itself. Not to mention, like, man, the way that characters get from plot point A to plot point B is some of the clunkiest shit that I have seen in so long, where I will like always think of the Kaylee Spanny scene where they're like two journalistic cars and they're playing a game called, hey, let's all jump back and forth in between each other's cars while we're driving down the highway, which is a real thing that happens. And then guess what? The cars get split up from each other and our main group is separated from each other. I was like, are you fucking kidding me that this is happening right now? Like, it was laughable.
But guess what? That scene happens literally right before the Jesse Plemons scene.
And it leads to, I think that this is one of those movies that, and maybe this is similar to like kind of how you feel about Longlegs, but it has some moments in it, but I just found the connective tissue to be like really, really ineffective, and like either it kind of bored me or I just kind of found it bewildering.
That's fair. You shout out Kaylee Spaney. The first time I saw the movie, I bumped on her character a lot more. I rewatched it today, and I think it might be the Alien Romulus factor, where I wasn't thinking about Priscilla. I was thinking about her being a badass shooting aliens, and the Civil War character worked way more for me. I did not bump on it.
I will say Kirsten Dunst, you're right. She's fantastic in it. She's amazing in it. It's just like a scene, but the scene with our boy Jesse Plemons is incredible.
One of the scenes of the year.
It's incredible. Like, that is a very, very effective 4 minutes in this movie. But
what kind of American are you? Civil War.
Do you guys think that Gabriel Labelle could put on enough bulk to play Luigi?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's just only cast
He's
Gabriel
really
Labelle
short, though. I think Luigi was kind of a tall king.
I don't think he's. I don't know. Who cares?
Okay.
Tom Cruise built an entire film career.
Shut out.
So
our boy.
I don't think that's gonna stop.
Civil War is my number 10. Drew, number 9.
Another one I didn't expect even to like as nearly as much as I did, but A Real Pain.
Hey,
you're gonna have to save that one.
Hey, nice.
I don't know if I'm gonna have to save this one or not. My number 9 is I Saw the TV Globe.
We're gonna have to save it a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Love it. Love these picks. Okay, so we just swung right back to me. This is the joy of not having a guest. It's just the three of us. I love this. My number 9, I had to give us the other side of the journalism coin. Because
he's going to be like, don't look up.
Yeah.
Because
I just watched that for the first time this year.
While Civil War is a very silly, preposterous depiction of journalism, my number 9 is the most gutting, brave, realistic work of journalism this year. It's No Other Land. It is a documentary made by a Palestinian activist, co-directed, co-shot with some other Israeli and international folks as well. But it's essentially centering on.
It's like co-prod between Palestinian and Israeli.
So Basel Adra, Hamdan Balal, Yuval Abraham, and Rachel Cesar are the directors.
When did one name end and the other began?
Those are 4 names.
Okay.
The first name, Basel Adra, is the sort of the main character. So it is a documentary about a documentarian is essentially what we have here. It is a young man who is documenting the occupation of Israel, of his small town in Palestine. This is a remote village. They have very, very little. And the Israeli army is coming in to essentially uproot it, take it over, demolish all the buildings, push the people out. And he is filming everything as much as possible and just trying to get the word out to the world of what is happening. And the incredible thing about this film is that the entire thing takes place before the events of October 7th, before the attack of Hamas on October 7th, 2023. So we're seeing horrible atrocities, horrible, just inhumane, violent war crimes being committed by not just the Israeli military, but Israeli settlers on these humble Palestinian villagers before Hamas even did that horrible attack. So it recontextualizes a lot of our assumptions of the conflict as it's been portrayed since October 7th in a way that's very, very necessary, because this is something that's been happening for decades, for generations, this occupation, this genocide, essentially. And that's not really what the movie is about. The movie is really just about this young man and his family and his village and his people. It's not really trying to broaden the scope too much. He's just sort of filming what's in his surroundings. It's incredibly affecting. It's a little bit hard to watch sometimes. There are a couple sequences that are very, very tough to sit through. But I think this is so necessary, so brave that he did this and that he continued to do this and was not scared to stop in the face of the threats by the Israeli army. I think it is a monumental film, one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. A little bit demanding, but it doesn't cross lines. I mean, obviously you are seeing some violence. You are seeing, some horrendous things, like really just brutal stuff, but it's not like, to the point where it's unwatchable or anything like that. It's called No Other Land.
I gotta be honest. This was one before we turned in our ballot for the Critics Association. This was the one that I was like the most sad and like disappointed at myself that I just didn't get into, but I just could not get myself in the right headspace for this.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's a tough sit.
I mean, year before that, it was watching 20 Days in Mariupol, which is kind of similar, where it's...
That was about Ukraine.
That was about the Ukraine. That was literally about the first 20 days of... Or I guess it's not the first 20 days, but the first 20 days of Russia fully taking over Mariupol, Ukraine, and kind of going through why they settled on Mariupol as this port city, how it's important for trade, and a bunch of journalists who are trying to film the events that are going on there while also like trying to get out because you're just trapped there.
Yeah.
And I think No Other Land kind of scared that of me too. That was like, don't really know if I'm just going to like casually at like a 2:30 on a Tuesday want to throw on No Other Land, but I need to.
It keeps it relatively tight and focused on just this boy, this young man, his general circle, his relationship with the other young man, Yuval Abraham, who is the Israeli journalist who's sort of helping get his story out there. And there's a line in this film that I cannot stop thinking about, where they have this conversation where they're thinking about stopping the film and they're too scared to continue to do this work of documenting what's happening. and they talk themselves into continuing because they have to get the United States to stop arming Israel. Like, that is the goal. That is what they're trying to do. That is what the entire conceit of what they're trying to accomplish with documenting this is to get the United States to stop arming Israel. So please seek out this film. It doesn't have distribution right now. I don't know how people are going to be able to see it. I really hope it gets nominated for Best Documentary at the Oscars. I hope they just like upload it to YouTube or something.
I think it's going to get up. Well, I think it's probably going to happen because I think that's something similar. I could be wrong on 20 Days Mariupol. I might be mixing up with another wartime documentary, but it was nominated for Best Documentary and they got picked up by like a PBS or something like that. Who's just like, all right, we'll just get this and like we're going to basically like eat the cost on this, but we just want to get this in as many eyes for free as possible. So
I don't usually put documentaries on my list, but especially after I put Civil War at my number 10, I had to.
Journalism Ernie is out here spreading the good word that it is important.
I couldn't in good conscience put Civil War over.
Is Spotlight like rising up like your favorite movies of all time?
Absolutely. That movie is a banger.
Well, that movie is a banger, actually. So.
No Other Land is my number 9. Drew, we're at your number 8.
I saw the TV Glow.
Let's go, Ernie, on your list.
It's in my 11 through 20. Okay. It was one of those where at one point it was in my top 10 and you
got a spot higher than me. So take the lead on this one.
It's a great movie. Wasn't as familiar with Jane Schoenbaum as I should have been.
This is their second film.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Just in terms of like as a presence, like extremely online presence all over Twitter. You can feel it in the movie. It's just it's a really confident movie. Like it's very confidently made. The way that we hold on moments and shots and scenes, the way that we're allowed to just sit there and feel discomfort as we're really, we don't know what's unfolding exactly. But yeah, it's just like the story of a young boy, like going through like a dysphoria of identity.
Yeah.
And, meeting someone who sort of changes his life. And then it turns into, it delves into this sort of like dream world supernatural of this.
Yeah, the TV Glow.
Yeah, of the pink opaque.
Yeah.
Where are you at on the name, the pink opaque?
So Colin can't stop talking about this.
This is the first thing Colin and I talked about. After
he can't stop talking about this. That like
he's not a fan of the name.
He's like,
it's a bad name.
He's like a Nick at Night show would not be called the pink opaque. That's fair. It's
almost like there's a second meaning there.
Well, they also like this didn't show up in titles, but they put a lot of like off kilter stuff on the air at Nick at Night. The titles weren't like that, but like something like The Adventures of Pete and Pete or whatever.
Yeah,
that show was really, really strange and like moody and bizarre. Like that's a show that would be called something like the Pink Opaque. I don't mind it. It's fine. It's a better band name than it is a show name.
What's the moon guy called? Mr. Moon Man? Mr. Evil Moon Man?
It's Mr. Melancholy, which that is a sick name. That is a really, really cool name and cool design by this guy.
Yeah.
Great character design. Generally, I mean, the movie has a lot of cool stuff to say about like memory and like our relationship with
nostalgia.
How memories can warp
reality, essentially.
Exactly. How our brains can warp memories and how pop culture like lives differently in our head than it did when we absorbed it. But does that matter if it meant that much to us at the time? It's an extremely fucking cool movie.
It's very out of the box. It's one of the most unique things I've ever seen. It's very hard to compare it to anything else.
Yes. I think that's true. It's also one of those movies that, I mean, you talk about like, I don't know what's going to age and everything. I think this movie's going to age like fine.
Oh yeah.
And I think that this is something.
It's like, it's a queer story and that's, those are
feels necessary.
Yeah. And they're only going to get more and more relevant. Like it's not exactly going away.
Yeah.
But it's also accessible beyond, just the queer community.
It is, but it's not trying to like, this isn't trying to be like an Oscar play type, that kind of, this isn't, what is it? Not The English Patient. What's the Eddie Redmayne movie from
Oh my God, I know what
I'm talking about.
Alicia Vikander won the Oscar.
Yes, that one.
The Danish Girl.
The Danish Girl. There we go. This isn't the Danish Girl. Like, this is trying to actually be something that is more just like accessible to others and is a queer story, but it's also something more. It's also like an incredible movie about nostalgia.
Yeah, like that's the thing is that's woven into a movie that's like interested in a lot of different ideas. Yeah. Like it's playing with so many different like heady concepts here. They're not all fleshed out like as much as you might want necessarily. Things end. I mean, obviously she's not trying to give us like a perfect, understanding of everything going on. Like, it's meant to be ambiguous, but like certain things, you don't have to agree with every choice. I know that it's a little divisive. I think Justice Smith is fucking incredible.
So he was actually in my top 5 for the critics group.
Yeah, man.
I loved his performance.
Same.
And there's a lot, there's a lot of pushback online. There are plenty of people who don't like the performance. Because, kind of giving you like a slackjaw stupid look for like a lot of the movie, as he's just,
the ending sells it for me.
Yeah. And he's also like, I don't know. I see the intensity bubbling the entire time. Yep. I see the confusion and the fear.
Right.
Like I really was in tune with his performance. I struggled a little more with Bridget Lundy Payne. As Maddie.
The monologue is a little confounding.
That's like, I think that is the worst part of the movie, is that monologue. I think that's the one thing where
it just puts you into like a dream-like lull.
If I can go back again, same thing for Longlegs of like, can we just cut out a monologue that happens in the third act where we explain just a little bit too much about what's going on?
I wouldn't cut it out. Because I like it's almost like the Leftover. It's almost like the Carrie Coon monologue at the end of Leftovers.
You're just saying that because of the hair.
Well, you get what I'm saying about like she's telling the story of her experience and you don't know if it happened.
I found certain choices within it interesting. I like that she's like
light circling
and she starts crawling on all fours at one point. That makes it like more compelling than just than like the Castaway monologue, which I fucking hated, for example. I don't think that she's dialed throughout the entire movie. I think it's a bit of an inconsistent performance. Obviously she's playing a very like neurodivergent character who delivers things super flatly. Yeah. So you're going to get some of that. Sometimes I'm getting Deb from Napoleon Dynamite though. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
That said, generally speaking, nothing is ruining the experience for me. Like this movie as an experience is really affecting. We haven't even talked about the insane soundtrack.
Yes.
Like
soundtrack of the year.
Pull check.
Every cool like queer and queer adjacent artist is all over this. Including ones that you probably haven't heard of, like not just like the the premiere, but that Polachek song is one of my favorite songs of last year.
Well, every time I listen to it now, I just picture the tracking shot through the hallway. Yeah, like, it's just in my head.
Yeah, Starbound and Unkissed, that song. Yule is great. Anthems for a 17-year-old Girl is a fantastic track. I really love that one.
I didn't know exactly how I felt about like holding on that music performance for so long. It felt a little bit like,
and the writing on the screen.
It felt a little bit like Schoenbaum being like, isn't this cool that I got them in their hair?
Yeah, but that's movies sometimes are just
You're talking about the concert?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Well,
it just kind of
goes. I thought you meant the hallway.
No. Well, the hallway scene's cool. I like the hallway scene. Almost feels like the hallway scene feels like you're watching almost like a TV, like an old TV show. Like that would be on like Ned's Declassified as you're like walking down the hallway
with the writing
and everything. Yeah. Like I like the concert, but then again, R.I.P. David Lynch, it like gave me Twin Peaks: The Return vibes of like, we're just going to watch a whole concert. Nine Inch Nails is just going to perform for us right now to end out the episode. So I did like that. I think like some of my biggest takeaways from this movie, one, the production design is like incredible. I think it like
when they're in the show, like that is unbelievable.
It's so fucking sick. Also, they're the eventual like real version of the show that we finally see. Mm-hmm. Like I love how like the relation,
parallel.
Relation between the imagined version and like the real version
on streaming.
It's perfection.
It's so sad. It's like it just crushes you.
So speaking of that,
it's so upsetting. Yeah, you're like, oh man, it sucks.
Speaking to that whole sequence, like that's just kind of a thing that like I'm sure that we've all at this point as 30 or near 30-year-olds kind of experienced it of like, I just want to go back and like, I want to press that button I used to hit whenever I was a kid. I want to I want to slide in this video game that I used to play as a kid that used to bring me so much joy. I want to put on this old TV show that I used to watch all the time. It's like, oh, it's a lot of Fairly Odd Parents is really good.
Yeah, and it's like this show like changed me.
Yeah,
like this show like was everything.
And I think that another thing that this movie captures really well is not just aside from like the queer themes, aside from this like a lot of the broader themes that have been talked about, is that at the end of the day, this is kind of just like about connecting with another person when you're just like, you have nobody. Like he has the Justice Smith character, Owen. He has like no relationship with his family. The one person that he does kind of have in his life is his mother.
The excellent Danielle
Deadweiler.
Still, our stock is cashing out dividends from Station 11. She's been quietly in like a million things this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, piano lessons.
She low key might have an Oscar nomination in her future for piano.
For Carry On.
For Carry On. Yeah.
Oh my God, she's in Carry On.
She is in Carry On.
She was robbed for
Carry On. One of your 15 good movies. Right? Is that coming up next? I hope.
Unfortunately, it's just on the outside. I'm sorry to call.
Damn it.
Colin really wanted me to love Carry On. I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd, and he texted me like a minute later. He's like, "What in the fuck?"
Hey, honestly, Carry On kind of fits into my thing of like movies with huge flaws, but damn, did I have a good time watching it.
I still haven't seen
it. It's one of those where it's like, is it even flawed, or is it just like meant to be like that? It's like just like supposed to be like slop stupid.
Yeah,
you know,
and it works for that.
Yeah,
I think that like that whole aspect of like, though, going back to I Saw the TV Glow, of you find this person who like has this interest and you aren't even necessarily interested in that thing, but the fact that they're like leaving the door ajar for you to jump into this interest, it took me back to like whenever you are in like middle school years or so, and you're still trying to like figure out what you even like, what your likes and dislikes are. But like this one kid who you perceive as cool, or maybe they're older, they really like this thing. So then you're like, oh, yeah, no, that's my thing too. Another version of that is a movie that I don't think that we're going to talk about this year, but Dee Dee does a really cool thing of that, which I deeply relate to, which is about like skate culture and like, well, all the cool kids are into skating. So I guess if I want to have friends and like be perceived as cool, I have to be a skater guy now. I have to film skate videos. And like, that's kind of almost the way that the Owen character gets into this world. And then it just is the overinvestment because it's like, well, this person's like obsessed with this thing. So not only you can't just like this, like you have to like read the books. Mm-hmm. You have to like get the copies every
pre-internet too. It's like it's VHS.
That's what I was gonna say is I think that jumping forward to the ending, like it really has something to say about the streaming world that we're in, because in the day and age where everything is accessible all the time, and
in
you can
4K Ultra HD,
you can just fire up Netflix and watch the entire series. You can go on fucking Marvel Unlimited Comics and read all the extra like fan thing, whatever. Like,
and obsession is normalized.
Yeah,
way more than it was. Like back then, if you were that obsessed with anything,
you're a weirdo,
fucking freak.
Yeah,
it's. Yeah, it is such a cool movie. A couple people have said this before, but like this does feel like this is going to be a touchstone for a lot of like Gen Z, Gen Alpha filmmakers generation. That are like,
if they watch movies.
I think that Gen Z's got,
if they're not watching The Brutalist,
I don't know. No, but there's going to be a lot of people who are like 14, 15, 16 watch this movie and they're like, holy shit, this is going to change like my personality now.
Shout out to Jane Schoenbrunn. They made an incredible movie. Shout out to Connor O'Malley.
O'Malley
dropping a fucking bucket at the end of this thing. Like,
again, just Jane's just like a cool person. You know? Like the orbit of Jane is entirely cool people.
Yeah.
Shout out to We're All Going to the World's Fair. Highly recommend it.
Need to see it.
It's very like super uber low budget, shot almost entirely through like cameras on a laptop. But what it does again with like very constricted space is really cool. I think that she has like a real eye, and I can't wait to see what she does next.
I Saw the TV Glow as Drew's 8 and Hunter's 9. Hunter, we're at your number 8.
Mine, I have a feeling that we're gonna have to wait on at least a little bit. My number 8 is Nosferatu.
That is a very quiet Orlok. You need to explain press a little bit more.
See, the thing is, you have to be a little bit more breathy.
Is he always that sleepy? It sounds like he just got out of bed.
He just woke up. My number 8's Nosferatu.
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
I have a
pick.
little higher. than that.
Okay.
Okay.
I can't wait for us to do this again in 30 minutes.
I think we're in the overlap zone because
Yeah, I was looking at my list. I'm like,
my number 8 is Challengers.
Hold it.
Oh yeah.
For just a boot.
Oh
Just a boot for me.
My number 7 is A Different Man.
Hell yes, dude.
Go.
Did this make your list?
No, I'm so glad
Okay.
this makes my list. This was one of the hardest cuts.
I am so excited to talk about this movie. This one was on my list, and then I changed it to fucking Civil War, which sue me. Fucking sue me, okay? Because I shouted out the artistry of Alex Garland so that I could sacrifice my number 10 slot. And I'm glad that you have it.
You could put down the work of disfigured men. Yeah.
I'm so glad this is on
shouted
my
out
list.
Jesse Plemons and stuff. Sorry, bud. I'm really sorry, bud.
Jesse's never gonna come.
Jesse,
on the pod now.
Clem Dog, please.
This movie is such a banger.
It's
so cool.
It's just so cool. That's the thing about it. There are choices that I'm not entirely on board with in the movie. Like the way things unfold is there. I don't really know. I can't say unexpected because like, I don't know. You're not really able to expect anything in this movie. It's also unexpected. But my God, premise of like the century, like it is such an unbelievable premise for a movie.
And it connects.
Yeah.
It's like when we're at the range or we're at the links and you get a fucking smack on that ball that just you get that sound. You get a bing. That's what this movie is. It's just like this shouldn't work. Like this is an insane idea for a movie. A man with some is it a disease, some kind of condition?
Yeah, like a physical disfigurement in his
Adam
face.
Pearson, who like most notably, I guess, is probably from Under the Skin. He is one of the
but he doesn't enter the film until way
I know.
He's just like he hasn't had a lot of acting roles in his life because
of his
disfigured face. Like
this movie does a lot to fuck with your expectation of that.
Yeah. Especially with the surrounding cast of characters.
It's shockingly like this is like one of the most Kaufman movies I've ever seen. Like,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's entirely about what you think it's going to be. Like that, you know what, in an insane way. And it's also about like wallowing in self-pity. So there's like a ton of Kaufman there.
Yeah.
Just generally speaking. Yes.
And just the tragedy of it all. Like it's literally the premise of it. Because this is another one that is just like deeply underseen.
And we need to say this because I was not going to watch it until Adam at the New Year's party, friend of the pod, told me what it was about. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, it's like funny. I was like,
he gave it 5 stars.
Which, by the way, that's like the whole like conceit of the movie is that I stupidly thought there's no way that could be funny.
Yeah.
So it
very, very dark humor.
Yeah. And it's making you like laugh at yourself for being a fucking piece of shit. It's incredible.
So consistently. And it doesn't get old.
Yeah. So because you see any promotional material for this, you're like, oh my God, this is going to be really messed up. And it's not, it is. It's an insanely dark comedy. Like it's a guy with a physical disfigurement, which by the way, and again, like egg on my face, I had forgotten like exactly what Adam Pearson looked like. I thought that was him.
Right. I mean, it's
for the first half
it's
of the movie,
different, but it's
very similar.
Something, very similar.
Yeah, it's like modeled after Adam Pearson's face. Who is an actor with a severe disfigurement. It's obviously getting in the way of everything in his life, particularly being able to act.
Have we said the word Sebastian Stan yet?
No. Haven't said it. Turns out that's this guy.
Boy can fucking act.
Yeah. So basic premise for people, because it is just like the log line. It's got an incredible elevator pitch that is the most Kaufman shit ever. It's this actor, Edward, of course, obviously horribly disfigured, undergoes this very experimental procedure where essentially he gets injected with something
handsome.
And he becomes handsome.
Sebastian Stan.
Unfortunately, meanwhile, while all of this is happening, whenever he is still has the facial disfigurement, he meets his new neighbor, Renata Rensive from Worst Person in the World, which goddamn love to see her and everything. She's incredible.
Shout out to all my presumed innocent heads out there.
And he, sure. And she develops affection isn't the right word for it, but like a little bit of a friendliness with him.
Neighborliness.
It's neighborliness, but there is like a little bit more that there is definitely something like interrogative about what she is doing, like kind of like looking into his life. Come to find out that she is a writer. So the Edward character, playwright, excuse me. He undergoes this medical procedure because he is really just like wants to live a normal life. He wants to be able to like meet and have sex with women, do normal
He's very
things.
tortured.
Yes. And we see this through the first like 30 minutes of the movie. He goes through this whole procedure to become hot Sebastian Stan, only to find out after he like abandons his own life behind him that this kind of old love of his life wrote a story about Edward.
Yeah.
About the man who used to live next door to him. Unfortunately, though, now he can't play the role because he doesn't look like how
because he looks like Sebastian Stan.
Yeah. So he then becomes jealous because in comes fucking Oswald, dude.
Yeah.
That's
popping off.
So cool. Oswald actually clicks for me better than almost any other piece of this movie. First of all, Adam Pearson's doing amazing.
Yeah.
Is he Australian IRL?
British or Scottish?
Well, he's Australian in the movie. I think this is maybe the best writing choice outside of the premise by Aaron Schimberg is Oswald is the best man in the world.
Yeah.
He is just a perfect human being.
He's got riz.
In every single way. He's charismatic. He's cool. Everyone loves him. Even in destroying our protagonist, he is so graceful. It's so fucking fun. Every line he delivers, it's like, God, man, he's a good guy. I like the guy. I hate to say it because I know, he's really introducing some conflict into our boy's life, but also our boy Sebastian Stan introduced a lot of conflict into his own life. So it has almost while it's fucking with our expectations and it's playing off those, it also has something to say about like making the choice to wallow versus not. Like,
right.
Because
how tortured are you? How much of your own pain is self-inflicted?
Yeah, that's the journey our protagonist is going on. He's realizing that like maybe his disfigurement wasn't the thing holding him back as much as he thought it was. That's not exactly what the movie's trying to say, because obviously like it's going to hold back the career of a fucking actor. And like the way the movie has a really interesting conversation about like how we all have a natural reaction to people with facial disfigurement. And that like they're, despite what we may do, like that's just like a natural reality of life. Schimberg has made his last movie was about this in a similar way. It was another, I haven't seen it, but it's another like very metatextual, like playwright
Chained for Life.
Yeah, playwrighty thing starring Adam Pearson.
Interesting.
Yeah, that plays off of his physical disfigurement. And it's not pulling punches. Like it's just showing you these people. Like there's a cast full of them in this movie.
That was one of my favorite parts, is just seeing all these faces that you would never see in any other movie.
It's these people who usually are restrained to being in like HR videos about people with these conditions. Like that's when it's revealed that that's the short
dude that
he's in.
So funny.
It's also so sad.
Yeah,
it's funny, but it's sad and it's upsetting. And he's watching it with Renata, and she's like, so that's all. Like that's all you do is he literally is just like, I don't feel so good.
But then to think what he was trying to do to make his mark on
the movie opens on him going real big. Like while shooting,
like, can you not be scary?
Yeah.
you're like a monster right now. Can you not do that?
It's so fucked up.
It's so like mean spirited, this movie, but it's mean spirited towards the normal
us.
people.
Yeah,
for,
like
for non-disfigured.
And it's giving you the permission to laugh not at them, but like in the presence of them, because you should be able to. It shouldn't be so taboo.
Well, and because the moments where there is something that is mean spirited towards somebody is like met with like this like really like icky feeling as you're watching it. Like I'm thinking specifically, there's a sex scene that happens with Sebastian Stan.
One of the most wild moments.
And then a person says like put on the disfigured face mask, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, where's this going to go now? And it kind of gets dark. It gets like bleak, and you just feel bad.
Yeah, and then she laughs and she's like, "This is fucked up," and then the scene ends.
I love
so all over the place.
The way the movie is shot and edited. It feels a little bit unconventional. There's like a ricketiness to it.
Well, so
the camera's like zooming in and out of shots.
I'm pulling up a name now. This is my score of the year.
This love the score. The opening of the film. As soon as it started,
2 score of the year. I believe
it's fucking unbelievable. It adds a lot to the movie. It adds a lot to the feel of the movie. It's a very like classic sounding like orchestral but it's a lot of like woodwindy and
it almost felt like a 70s movie.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very woodwindy, brassy. It almost makes it feel like Woody Allen-ish in a weird way, which works because this is about someone who fucking hates himself.
Right.
Yeah.
It all just works so well. And then also in like the more tense moments, they just hit you with an orc hit of like really fucked up notes.
Yeah.
Like every instrument is playing a different note.
Right.
And it's really upsetting. Like it's expertly deployed. There's a lot that's really expertly done in this movie. I feel like it's almost on me for squinting too hard at certain parts. You know what I mean? When it's just so objectively absurd that you shouldn't. But I was really surprised with the choice that when he changes and becomes Sebastian Stan, he instantly decides to fake his own death and assume a new identity. Does so really successfully, doesn't really run into any speed bumps there, and becomes a real estate agent. Why is he a real estate agent?
Is a cardboard cutout of himself.
Yeah, I don't really know what was happening.
Why? Because he's handsome.
Why? Yes, so that makes sense.
If you're hot, you become real estate agent.
That makes a lot of sense. It defies what you would think which is that he just like becomes a fucking actor.
Become an actor, yeah.
But I guess that also like the thing is like Sebastian Stan's character is like not a great actor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's okay.
Yeah. But I was left wondering because all of his real estate agent buddies are all talking about how great he is. And it's like, he's good at real estate? Why? This guy doesn't have social skills. He's really like unpleasant.
Here's the thing. You guys have all bought several houses at this point in your life. You never buy the house from the ugly guy.
Yeah,
but if Sebastian Stan was selling me a house, I'm like, yeah, I'm buying the fucking house,
That's
dude.
fair.
Maybe Sebastian Stan will come and sleep with me in this house.
This guy is just so like off-putting. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't get better clothes when he gets hot. His clothes suck.
It's literally the
he's
same.
dressed like Woody Allen.
Yeah.
So again, that's probably on me for squinting too hard. But that plot detail, I was like, why in the fuck is any of this like
it's
going
something.
on
Well,
here?
it's also such like a small little thing in the movie because the movie is almost like I feel like a lot of the plot of the movie is like almost set up for a punchline. Like you have him being a real estate with his real estate buddy friends so that you can have like the freak out moment.
Yeah.
15 minutes later. Like it is kind of, this movie is very, very snappy with the pacing. I was just looking at it because it is all over my ballot for like editing, score.
I didn't see it in time for our
cast.
ballot.
Yeah.
So
It would have been on there.
here's one take that I think generally is going to get a lot of pushback. I actually would like to see other actors give this one a whirl. I like Sebastian Stan. I think he's good here. He
won the Globe.
And also like a lot of it might have to do with the direction because this is from someone doing an auteur thing. They might have a very specific vision for the performance. Obviously it's very written. So
I just like how mopey he is.
Well, that's the thing. So maybe it's not his fault, but the first half of the movie, it's like he's giving absolute zero on purpose, obviously, but it's like he can barely like stammer a fucking word out. It's brutal to watch him try to talk
under all that makeup though.
Yeah. And then he flips into like really quickly into a guy that is off-putting and like upsetting to be around, but like a lot more assertive.
Yeah.
It's like I guess it's because his character is like not necessarily a good guy.
But he's getting cocky because he's
Well, exactly.
people like him now.
But he's also like not like utilizing his charisma in any like good way.
Yeah.
Like
No,
you know what
that's
I
fair.
mean? But I found myself being like, what in the like
He's just like not a good person.
Yeah, like-
I think like that's kind of at the end of the
exactly
day.
like his evolution is just so out there.
One thing Lee said that I was thinking a lot about is she wished that that scene where he's like scream crying in the bed was a much more drawn out subplot, because we don't really get that again.
That's sort of exactly, I think that's exactly what I'm getting at is we go from someone whose entire internal life is just implied to someone who is giving a lot more. Like he's giving like a lot of, even if he's not talking so much, really, really like choice heavy facial expressions as an actor. And it feels like there's like no in between when I wanted maybe either a little more when he's disfigured or a little less when he first becomes Sebastian Stan. It just felt a little bit choppy to me. And I might be biased because I just listened to an interview with him today and he was really annoying. So maybe that's
Stan?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I hate to say
I hate that.
but also actors are annoying. I don't know what I
That's-
expected.
well,
That's
fair.
not his fault. Actors suck.
I will just say, like, I really, really enjoy him in this movie. I do understand kind of what you're talking about. I think that the absurdity of it all and kind of the black comedy, I didn't really think about so much of like the plot points of this movie because I
you're
didn't
not
really
supposed to
think of that as like
you're not supposed to.
the takeaway. It is, and it almost feels like not just like it's that, but it's almost like bad theater in a way. It's like the performance, the show that Renato Renzi is putting on is bad. Like this is a bad show.
Yeah.
And like
and
the
it gets
fact,
like picked up.
the fact that
Michael
like
Shannon's gonna play. He's gonna play this guy. He's gonna play Edward.
incredible cuts.
So good.
Unbelievable.
My girlfriend did not understand why I was squealing.
I was losing my mind when that happened. But it's just the thing where it's like, I don't know, the fact that like Edward like sees just this like shitty little like stage play that has like in like an auditorium that fits like 14 people, and it's just like, yeah, I should probably like throw my life away and like go back in so that I can rekindle my old life. It's just such a cool idea. I love what Sebastian Stan is doing. Like Sebastian Stan, he's him and like Hemsworth to a different extent are trying to actually do something interesting.
That's the
post
thing.
Marvel, where you have like the fucking the Chris Evans and the Robert Downey Jr.'s
Yeah,
that are just
tough.
like crawling back for more fucking money.
Hey, he did Oppie. He did.
I guess he did one. He was one of my least favorite parts of the movie. But like, it is just a thing where it's like, at least Sebastian Stan is just taking all of these like weird, cool choices where he's just like, I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try and like play Trump in like an Ali Abbasi film that is like very sharp and pointed. Like
Yeah.
he is trying
So
to
that's
make
the
a
thing.
lot of
I
really
think
cool ideas that
I
I'm hearing.
kind of feel like a lot of the credit he's getting is the fact that he did it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
I think
feel
that's
that.
fair.
And that's like he should get
I
credit for
can't
doing
remember.
this.
Where
Yeah,
were you on
absolutely.
Itanya?
I love him and Itanya actually.
Okay.
And I just found myself wanting a little more out of his performance because this is, I guess it's the same thing I say about certain music things when we do our top 10s. This movie could like, there are the bones of a movie that's like the best movie I've seen in fucking years.
Right.
Here. Like this could be an 11 out of 10
Yeah.
and it's still a great movie, but like for that reason, I'm grading on a curve.
Right.
I think it's good.
That's facts.
It's a cool fucking movie though. And I recommend
The fact that it exists.
yeah, anyone who's into like
Yeah. And it's
you
as
know,
good as it is.
anyone who's into like more like macabre or like upsetting
Yeah.
comedy.
Kaufman is a good comp.
yeah, honestly, yeah.
It's called A Different Man. It's Drew's number 7. Great pick. Great pick. Hunter, we're at your number 7.
I have a feeling we're gonna have to wait again. My number 7's Challengers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious if we'll have to wait for my number 7. It's Sing Sing.
No, this is I think it's my number 11 or 12 on my list. Please talk about it. Beautiful movie.
I didn't catch it.
Beautiful movie.
Sing Sing is the story of the real life members of a Shakespeare acting troupe at Sing Sing prison in the state of New York. And it's really just a story about that. One of my favorite things about it is that it doesn't try to do this large sort of broad scope story of all the horrors of life in prison. It's really just about these characters. It stars Coleman Domingo. It stars Clarence Macklin basically playing himself, as are all the other cast of characters in this film. It's basically all these actual incarcerated actors just reprising their roles as themselves from their own experiences. And it is one of the most beautiful, touching, transcendent stories that I've seen all year. Really, really beautiful story. Brought me to tears multiple times. Coleman Domingo was my favorite actor, my performance of the year. Just love it so much.
Good on him.
Yeah.
Big recommend.
This movie is like really beautiful. I think I remember whenever I saw this movie, I was like, this is a lock. This is winning best cast at SAG. And it didn't even get nominated, which it was like a shock whenever the SAG nominations came up that this was not one of the nominees. I don't really know what A24 is quite doing there. I think that they almost have too many movies this year and they don't really know what to push. But
they waited way too long.
Yeah,
to put this out, and I don't know if it's going to hit.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think this movie is really, really effective. Listen, we've been out here on Coleman Domingo Island. It has just been like growing more and more over the years. The property values are continuing to rise. He's going to get an Oscar one of these years. If it isn't happening this year because of it is a very, very deep best actor year this year, especially now with the rise of Timmy coming in addition to Brody. He's going to get it eventually. He is amazing. Clarence Macklin is just
a revelation.
He's probably the biggest surprise of the year because he wasn't an actor. He literally was a prisoner of this institution who was just joined this Shakespearean troupe, and through the power of like theater and art was able to kind of reform his life. Theater
as therapy is kind of the core theme of this story. The reform of these incarcerated folks, these felons, and showing them in a light that doesn't get shown. I think that is one of the most powerful things of this film is that it doesn't try to do any of the tropes that movies about criminals or incarcerated people or felons usually do. It's really just a story about humanity and people trying to channel their humanity through acting, through theater. It's so beautiful. I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah.
Really, really touching, emotional film. Very, very special.
It is very special. I think that's, I feel like we've been kind of like trying to put like brackets around every movie that we've talked about so far in our list, but this is another movie that makes kind of a couple storytelling choices in the third act that just like are like, oh yeah, that's right, we have to be a movie, where there's something that feels so like fresh and new, and you feel like you're kind of on the edge of your seat and you don't really know where the story is going exactly because it is such fresh new faces. It's such a cool new story that we have never seen before. And then we have to like have almost like inserted conflict occur in order to further the plot line.
But not too much. It doesn't go overboard.
It's like two scenes that I was just like, we're doing this now.
But it's probably based on real events. Like that's the thing is it feels like things that could easily happen in these situations.
Yeah. I guess that is true. I really need to rewatch it. I haven't seen this movie since it originally came out in theaters in June, July.
That's right. Yeah.
And then they pulled it.
What a bizarre rollout
to now try to re-roll it out now, like in time for Oscar voting.
What are you doing, A24?
I think A24.
Who's running the ship?
I think A24 is spread their wings a little bit too wide at this point.
Why not just throw it on streaming? I don't get it. Let people see the movie. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Shout out to the fact that they did decide to release this in prisons. Mm-hmm. It is going to be, I think, the first film ever to be released in theaters and in prisons at the same time. And they did a really interesting thing with their payment structure where everybody got paid the same.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you were the director or the lead actor, everyone got the same rate.
Or like the camera operator.
Right.
Yeah, just everybody the same across.
That's my rate.
Yeah, that's my rate. Exactly.
I don't have to do a good job.
You don't. So that's Sing Sing. It's a beautiful film. I hope that it squeaks into some nominations, and this bizarre decision to hold it doesn't completely backfire. I'm hoping for Coleman Domingo. I'm hoping for Clarence Macklin, and I'm hoping for picture and screenplay.
Screenplay would be really cool, adapted screenplay.
I mean, sadly, it already has backfired for them because it didn't make my list because of this.
Oh my God,
they're suffering.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, they're suffering.
It's not accessible right now, unfortunately.
I've thought about getting arrested just so I can go to prison and watch this. I'm a cinephile.
We should.
I don't know about you guys.
We could have recorded the pod over like a series of like 4 weeks of just like calling in.
I would be curious to hear some
recording phone audio
perspectives on the film from people who have been incarcerated and who have gone through the system, because I think that one of my kind of gut check feelings after watching the movie was thinking that some people who have gone through this experience might think that the movie feels a little bit too small, and that the fact that it just focuses on the theater program might be a little bit detrimental to sort of the broad scope of what this life is like. But to me, someone who hasn't gone through it, I thought that was refreshing. I thought that it was beautiful, that it didn't try to do a bunch of things, and it was just about these men doing this theater program. So that's Sing Sing. It's my number 7. Highly, highly recommend. You're number 6, Drew.
I don't have one line. I don't have the Nosferatu. It's Nosferatu.
You have to wait for that.
Oh yeah.
Just a little bit longer.
Hunter.
My number 6, I am almost positive we will not have to wait for. My number 6 is a movie called Red Rooms. Take us on.
I haven't seen this. Okay. It's on my to watch list. It's actually at the top of my to watch list.
So the thing about Red Rooms is this is one of those like fuck yeah, brother movies for me this year. It is a French Canadian movie, and I alluded to it earlier whenever I brought up Longlegs, and I don't want to say that I've been jaded by certain things in like pop culture the last few years, but there have just been like a few things that have kind of always irked me that are at like the forefront of people's love. And I think one of them, first and foremost, is kind of this obsession doesn't even begin to describe it. The true crime wave that has been bubbling for the last 10, 15 years, the Ryan Murphy-ification of everything. But it has like really during COVID took on a life of its own, to the point that mentioned it before. We can just explicitly say that we went to school with a kid who is now known as the Deadpool killer.
Oh, you're revealing it. Okay, we're hard launching the Deadpool.
Ernie, you can bleep all this out later. This can just be for people listening live. If you do choose to bleep this later, but I think that the fact that we went to school with somebody who is truly like a monster, like has done monstrous, disgusting, horrible, unforgivable things.
Listen, I don't like Colin either, but. You're going over the top.
Yeah. Well, listen, I won't say names. I think that seeing that and then seeing like a lot of internet reactions of just like, he's actually innocent. Like, oh no, he's just misunderstood. He just wasn't held enough as a baby. So actually like he should be free. Like he should be free to walk among all of us. And seeing the fetishization of serial killer culture is something that is like, it's so broken and twisted like in my mind that I can't possibly fathom that. And that's really at the forefront of what Red Rooms is trying to interrogate. So for a little bit of background, it's centers around Juliette Garepi. I believe that's roughly how you say her name. Plays a woman named Kellyanne, who's a model who starts by attending the trial of this man who is accused of broadcasting the murders of 3 teenage girls in what is known as a red room. And he broadcasts them live on the dark web and basically makes like snuff films out of like raping and butchering these children. That is like what it is centered on. I think that what makes this movie special is in Giuseppe's performance, because it is so understated that it is. She's basically like a blank canvas in what she is doing. It is so hard to get a read on anything that she is
watching,
feeling,
observing,
or watching. The movie or the film begins with the opening statements and this really incredible oneer that goes on for like 10, 12 minutes long of the opening statements from both the prosecutors and the defense. And the entire time, she isn't even saying a word. She's just sitting there. You can just see her in the background of the shot, just watching, just like staring directly at like whoever is talking, barely even making a blink, and then just staring at this murderer and like holding eyes, unbroken stares. And it's one of those things that as you're watching it, you're like, I cannot figure out what this person's relationship is to this murderer. Is she affiliated with him in some way? Is she like a purveyor of his goods? Is she related to the victims in some way? These are all kind of questions that you are asking yourself as you're watching this movie. And I really want to not get into spoilers because I want everyone to watch this movie kind of the way I did. Just
I think it's on Shudder now, I believe.
Oh, did Shudder buy it?
I think it's streaming on Shudder.
That's awesome. This is a perfect place for it to live, on Shudder. But it is one of those things that you kind of can't keep your eyes off of it. And not just with the Juliette Giuseppe character, because like I said, it's really hard to get a read on her, but in attending these trials every single morning, because this is basically like, think about it like whenever there's like the, not OJ trials per se, but any kind of like mass murder trial or anything like that. And they are technically open to the public, a lot of them, but
maybe a certain CEO is shot in the street, and maybe some people may potentially glorify the assailant.
There is, well, I'm thinking more so of like the Casey Anthonys of the world, of just like something like that, where there's just like
an entire media ecosystem.
Yeah, there's a frenzy around just not just like the murder itself, but the trial. Is kind of what's happening here to the point. But it is, and maybe this is a Canadian thing, maybe this is an American thing, and I just haven't attended any myself. But these are like open trials where they are open to some members of the public, not just. Is this like
an Anatomy of a Fall type situation where you're just like, what is the legal system in this foreign country?
A little bit. There's a little bit of that. Not nearly as good of hair as there is in Anatomy of a Fall, fortunately. But in going to these trials every single morning, she encounters, the Kellyanne character encounters this woman, Clementine, who is exactly the type of person that I talked about at the beginning, who's just like, he was innocent. Like, you can just tell, like, if you look at his eyes, like he just misunderstood, like he was never given a fair chance by the system. And like somebody who is just like constantly out there to defend and won't let herself believe that somebody committed these atrocities and has these parasocial relationships. This isn't somebody who like knew the accused before this happened. They just have this purely internet-based parasocial relationship with this person that has transcended into the like where there's actual victims that are at play here. I think that where this movie goes, you do see a little bit. You don't see the Red Room itself, but you see the reflections of the Red Room. You see people watching the events that you see here with just the light of a red, the bright red glow off of like another character's face. I saw the red glow
on the TV.
Haunting, absolutely haunting. And there is a choice that is made in this movie that I just like stood up and started like clapping at my TV at like 1:30 in the morning alone at my house. I was like, let's fucking go. Movies are so goddamn back. I've only seen this movie once because I was almost scared to rewatch it because I was like
unnerving.
Well, not even that. It was that this movie left me with such an incredible feeling that like I don't want to tarnish the way this movie made me feel, because it's one of the most like pure joys that I felt when watching a suspense horror mystery movie like this in a really, really long time.
Hell yeah. Red Rooms. Hunters,
Fantastic.
Number 6. We are now at my number 6 right before we call part 1. And
How much does Shudder cost? Is it free?
well,
$5.
it's cool because you get IFC and AMC Plus. So it's kind of 3 subscriptions in one. I think it's like $7.99 or something. I have it through Amazon.
I have it through
Shout out Bezos.
I have it through Run P Premium.
Nice. All right, we're at my number 6. And I know we're not going to have to wait on it because you both already brought it up in your list.
So this is sort of
Any thoughts on the sake so far?
I will say,
It's a pretty good sake. Straight from Japan.
so let's talk kneecap. Let's
guys with really bad Irish
that's
accents.
what guys who think this is from Ireland sound like.
Your Gaelic is a little bit rusty. We have to elect a new pope.
You guys are doing well. I think you guys are both doing knocking out of the park.
You're moving too fast. If you really want to get down, you have to belabor the words. But it's also
That's just like real GERD I'm hearing.
Yeah. Do you hear that? That's esophageal.
I hear inflammation.
Yeah.
I guess my impression is more how Orlok sounds in my wet
You are
dreams.
doing a wet what we do in the shadows impression. I like
Nosferatu is my number 6.
So it's sort of, this movie's sort of going to be like what Vampire Weekend was on our best, like where in its amalgamation score is going to be super high because we all think it's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if
what,
it's
6, 7, 8? Is that right?
It's my 6.
Oh, it's your 6. Okay.
6, 6,
my
8.
8. Yeah.
Great movie.
Beyond great, it is, I think, the ideal version of this story. We've seen this so many times. It's been around for over 100 years. Shout out to fucking 1922 version of Nosferatu.
Yeah, which was an illegal, unauthorized ripoff of Dracula.
It was the original Transmorphers. That's what it was.
Yeah, it really. I wasn't familiar with the history until the discourse has started back up. Obviously, unauthorized.
F.W. Murnau is the director.
Yeah, which is why it's not like sort of like a parallel cultures thing of like, oh, they just had similar stories. Like, no, they just fully ripped off Dracula, changed almost nothing but the name.
Well, it's funny because if you like look at it, you're like, oh, it's co-written by Bram Stoker, so this must have been him too. No, that was like a legal battle that was over the course of decades to get Bram Stoker to have Dracula to have a
Max
credit on Nosferatu.
Max Schreck played Count Orlok in the original, and he sort of became this icon of horror for not just horror, but like of cinema, of silent cinema for decades.
Donkey.
And to the point where even SpongeBob co-opted his image into, who was flickering the lights, that whole thing.
Nosferatu, yeah.
And now here comes Bobby the Eggman. Robert Eggers. He's been waiting his whole life to make this movie. He meant to make it before Northman and I think also before Lighthouse, but it kept getting pushed because he didn't quite have it yet. And what I mean by that is he needed to level up his ability to work within the Hollywood studio system, which is like a very weird thing to say. But when you watch this movie, it makes a lot of sense because he's making a lot of choices that very clearly appeal to mainstream horror audiences. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing, but it feels like it's what he wanted to do. And I think that this is his most effective movie to date in terms of just hitting the marks. It may not be his most artistically ambitious film. I think that's still Lighthouse. And it may not be his most technically ambitious film. I think that might be Northman. This movie made me appreciate some things about Northman that maybe I didn't when I first watched that movie. I think that movie is sort of coloring the lines outside the lines a little bit because of how ambitious it is. Northman feels like he is just aiming for the bullseye and hitting it every time. He knows exactly what movie he wants to make. He's made it in his head for his whole life. And here he is making it. And he's just doing Nosferatu. Like, he's not really trying to switch it up. Obviously, like, we can get into some specifics as to ways in which he does switch it up a little bit.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it's probably a good sign, like, if that was his aim, that maybe the primary critique of this movie is that he should have switched it up a little bit. Which but
he didn't want to.
No, that's the thing is I agree with that. If we're just talking about like potential ways that this movie could be incrementally better, but by going by the blueprint that he loves so much and has been around for so long, this is as good as you could do it.
It's so effective.
Yeah, it's
so eerie.
Yeah, and it's I mean, what we could expect is like, you know, we're getting like filmmaking perfection. Like we're just getting like,
it's lavish, it's grandiose.
Yeah, like just outrageously good stylistic choices. Really bold black and whites, if that is even
desaturated, maybe not monochromatic, but at least like the moonlight look of this movie is gorgeous. It's not a black and white film, but it feels like it's just moonlit. And I've seen it twice, watched it the first time at home on a screener. And as soon as I put it on, I told myself, absolutely not. I have to do this for the critics group, but I will see this in the theater. And boy, oh boy, we got a chance to see it in Dolby Cinema.
Yeah. That honestly seems like the way to
gorgeous.
see this movie with the blacks.
Oh my
like just
God.
have them be so inky, and that's what you want.
It's mostly a nighttime film.
I was really sad to watch this movie at home for the first time, but the one glass half full of this was the first movie I watched with the OLED.
Hell yeah.
So at least I was like, give me those fucking blacks, like blotchy. I still need to see this movie in theaters before it's no longer in theaters. Luckily it's a big hit. Like it's not a big hit, but it is a hit. It is doing,
it made back its budget. It looks like,
and I think with worldwide, it's going to surpass that. Listen, here's the thing is that I think that with Nosferatu, Robert Eggers proved like he is the best, most reliable, like surehand of making artistic studio horror movies. And the same way that I would say like James Wan is the best that we have at making like popcorn blockbuster studio horror movies. I think that Eggers has kind of taken that mantle. Ari Aster seems like he's more interested in doing other things outside the genre. We'll see what the future of Ari looks
Eddington
like.
coming soon.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what the future of Ari looks like, but I could see him trying to move more out of that state. Robert Eggers, like, I think that this kind of nails a lot of what I thought that the Northman lacked. And I think that you are right, Ernest, whenever you say like he needed to make the Northman
it's a stepping stone
to make Nosferatu. He couldn't have made Nosferatu unless he like learned the lessons they did with the Northman. But seeing Robert Eggers tell like fantasy stories and like especially like really wide fantasy stories of revenge dramas and things like that, that's just not the type of movie that I find him to be most effective at making.
You want it in his gothic black bag.
Yeah, well, I just think that he is a master at imagery. Like I think like this really is Lighthouse is still my favorite, but I think that this is easily the most technically
competent, effective. Yeah, just hitting the marks.
Yeah. It's very, very well done. I think that the performances are incredible.
Everybody.
I think that it kind of gets lost in this movie because everybody points to the cinematography, points to the direction. But Lily Rose Depp, who is
going for it,
who a lot of people like just on the internet used to shit on as just like she's a Nepo baby. She actually isn't very good. I think she's incredible in this movie. Her and Nicholas Hoult, our boy, are fantastic. And I think this is the best Bill Skarsgård has ever been.
Dude,
And
he's so good.
I think I think that this is the best Skarsgård performance Pennywise.
Love
so good.
him.
It's somehow like a lot more transformative than Pennywise the Clown, which is hilarious, but it's insane.
That mustache though.
Yeah, he's out of this world. He's making choices. Holt is like, we just come to expect greatness out of him.
Yeah.
He's never not good.
He owns the first half of the film through and through.
He hasn't been this good since Warm Bodies.
Oh, Renfield heads rise up.
Vampires.
Yeah.
He basically reprises his role.
I think Aaron Taylor Johnson is really well cast.
Yeah,
as
I'm a ship man.
as this, sort of like a belabored like fake alpha male.
Yeah.
That's just like the vibe he gives off anyway.
Right. Willem Dafoe popping off.
Yeah, so Defoe is like he's the shepherd into like the second half of the movie. Like things we get a much needed energy boost when Defoe comes in, I feel like. Like we're just coasting on like bad vibes and like beautiful pictures for a while and then he comes in and like he's just great. He knows what to do. He looks
perfect.
He looks like, I mean, he naturally looks like he was born in like the 1400s.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe like 10,000 BC. He kind of looks like a caveman. But yeah, he rocks. I love, obviously, this has a lot of the Eggers, like the mainstay, like sort of like thematic, like traits that he has going on. I think he does
historical accuracy.
Well, yeah, a lot of that
folklore.
Yeah, everything's ornate. Everything is well placed. He definitely does his casting based on vocal baritone abilities. Yeah. Like that's like kind of like mostly what he's concerned with. I feel like he does a lot of like he almost is blindfolded when he's in the casting room.
Right. He just wants to hear it.
Yeah. He's like, can you do a baritone? Or if not, like Aaron Taylor Johnson is a character who should not be able to do a baritone. You know what I mean? Like he could, because he's less, he's the fake, he's like, the fake in control. He's out of control and hating it. It all just works brilliantly.
When you were talking about the casting room, I thought you were just going to talk about like, how high are your cheekbones? Is like there's like a you have to have like a positive wingspan. A lot of people just like throw out your recruiting tape if you don't like meet certain measurables.
You're so right. It's all
cheekbone movie.
High cheekbones, like deep voices, far apart eyes. That's
he's got a type.
That's his
got a type.
I loved how immersive this movie felt. That's something that Eggers is always very good at, just putting you in this world. I always describe The Witch as like a movie as time travel, where you're just completely immersed in this situation and you feel like you're just experiencing it like you're there. And this movie does, add some layers of artifice, and it's not trying to do that same thing again. I think that he is able to iterate in slightly different tones and flavors in all four of his films. But this one just felt like it fully enveloped me. Like I was completely given over to his vision. And there are moments that absolutely stunned me. I mean, I could name so many shots, like the homages to the shadow of Nosferatu creeping throughout the castle, creeping throughout the city, the hand over the city. Little tiny moments like Holt speeding past the camera on his horse and the camera just whips past to follow him. Just the whole design of all of these environments, the town, the castle, the interiors, the candlelit rooms. There is just so much sense of detail here. And to give flowers to Lily Rose Depp, like it feels like this is a very character driven story. It starts out with this kind of declaration of darkness that you flip the story on its head a little bit and to put focus on this idea of her character being linked to Orlok from the start and from before the events of the film. It adds a little bit of an extra layer to it, and it doesn't quite give us the exact same thing. Obviously, we are hitting the same beats, and we're hitting imagery that is not just evocative, but just whole cloth lifted exactly from the original film and from other iterations of Dracula. This is, after all, a story about real estate transaction. He wants to buy a home in the city. That's what we're doing. We're hitting the same beats that we're familiar with, but there are these little
trying
wrinkles.
to gentrify. You know,
He is so over the gypsies in his crowding his area, and he needs to get out.
He's like, I want a walkable town.
Yeah. I crave
My budget is $5 million.
I crave for the local bagel shop on the corner.
Can we have Count Orlok on an episode of House Hunters? I think it'd be really good. Him and like Lily Rose Depp trying to figure out their dream home together.
I would like to install a new wall in the room to break up the space.
Count Orlok wants a home where he can mass murder and have sex with women of a large town until they die. And she wants to live nowhere near the city.
Have you seen the What We Do in the Shadows house flipping episode?
No.
Oh my God, dude.
Like that?
That's one of the best
what you're doing.
episodes.
That's incredible.
We're just doing that.
I will say, like, one last thing that I have about this, that yes, this is part of the Dracula story. This is part of the Nosferatu story, but is because it is in 2024 and R-rated, we can do more with it.
It's a nasty film at
The
times.
whole idea, well, yes, it's that, but like, I think the whole idea of what the movie has to say about like sex and like this whole idea of like, especially
and vampires are always very erotic. Stories.
And this whole idea of just like letting in the darkness is like, this is a deeply like horny movie, but like
it's an erotic picture.
Not
So is The Lighthouse.
So, and that's what I was going to get at, is that like Eggers has like such a little fucked up, twisted version of like eroticism in his mind. You have the like homoeroticism of The Lighthouse. You have like, I think I want to fuck my mommy in The Northman. You have this of just like it's embracing darkness, the whole idea of sex, but then the monster that's like lying under.
It is a little rapey.
A little.
I was gonna say
it is concerning, but he does ask for consent before he enters the room at the end.
He won't enter a house.
Do you want this from your own volition? I am speeding it up a little bit, but that's because we gotta keep it pushed.
I would like to request an intimacy coordinator.
Count Orlok and Lily Rose Depp at couples therapy.
That is something that even
I just feel like she doesn't listen to my needs. She always feels the need to take the lead on everything.
that is something when you watch the original film from 22, the woman character does have that similar level of agency. Like the moment in the story where she does kind of come in and take hold of the situation in a way that is an echo from the original film, which is very interesting. And even 100 years ago, they had that thought of like, let's give the ailing sort of damsel in distress a little bit of decision making power.
When was the story Dracula written?
It's in the 1800s.
It was, but it was like not long. It was late 1800s. It was not long before the movie.
Right.
1897.
And in this movie, I mean, this story is kind of like part of the theme is kind of the idea of being a woman in this time and having to exist in a society that oppresses you.
Yeah, absolutely. It also, I mean, like all Eggers movies, he's so like process driven and so obsessed with getting things period specific that you end up spending a lot of the movie just thinking about how being anyone back then sucked. Like everything was smelly and gross and like really inconvenient. Like, to be a real estate agent, you had to like go brave the elements and like sleep with gypsies, right. And then
that scene is so good.
Yeah. Like that was just like having a job. Yeah.
They're like, please do not go to the castle. We are begging you. They're like praying. There's so many details early on that add to the immersion.
I had to look up his name, Herr Nock, the owner of the brokerage and everything. Him just like spiraling into insanity because he was like
chomping the head off the pigeon.
It's great.
And then Ralph Ineson is like, Now, why would you go do a thing like that? Eggers is funny, man. This movie is funny.
It is funny.
Oh,
you got to have fun with it.
Defoe is being very funny.
Yeah.
Like he's delivering lines in a very like comedic way, especially because he's the one delivering the high pitch in a lot of this. And he's like, wow, this is simply the Dracula.
The occult.
Yeah. It's fun because
The vampire.
he comes in and calls his shot, and he's like, hey, here's exactly what's going on,
Yeah,
and
she's possessed.
and what's going to happen and what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I do enjoy I believe it's more of an Eggers creation of his character and Lily Rose Depp having, the secret mutual understanding,
Right.
being the only two that know.
Right.
I think that's very cool.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense. If you are to critique this, it's not the form. Like you can't really critique the approach. It's simply what you think is going to happen in the first act happens.
Yeah. But then as we see it, it is stunning. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. The finale of this thing.
With the story of Nosferatu is kind of what you're getting at.
Well, yeah, and it's the, this is a classic. It's a pitfall that directors fall into that like ruins what should be great movies. So this is still stands as like a towering success in my opinion.
Yeah, totally agree.
People are watching this movie. I think
I just saw 130 mil worldwide.
Exactly.
Off of 50 budget.
Let's
50
go.
Mil.
I think
Let's go.
I think what he's suffering from is the fact that like movie heads know what he can do.
Yeah.
And so even though this movie for a mass appeal period piece is so audacious.
Yeah.
To us, it doesn't feel as audacious because we've seen more audacity out of this fucking guy.
I have seen some film heads like gatekeep it a little bit and be like, "Oh, how dare you like laugh during this film? Like this is why would you go to
fucking
Come
stupid?
the fuck on, man.
especially
I hate that
during
shit.
the like possession sequences where Lily Rose Depp is like convulsing her body. It's like it's a little funny. Like it's harrowing. It's absolutely like the most intense shit you've ever seen. But if you chuckle, like that doesn't mean you're ridiculing the movie.
Yeah, it's okay.
fine. It's part of the experience.
Like fear and laughing go hand in hand.
Exactly.
With each other. Like that's kind of the thing that like I always hate when people do that kind of shit whenever you're watching like any kind of horror movie or something like that. It's like, no, you should kind of be laughing at certain points. One, for diffusing tension, and two, because like a lot of times you laugh when you're uncomfortable or whenever you feel fear.
Yeah.
Like that's a very normal human thing. They fit well together. It's okay to laugh during Nosferatu because it's kind of fucking funny.
I found myself laughing at the dynamic between Aaron Taylor Johnson and Lily Rose Depp, where he's just like, I hate this bitch so much.
That is great.
Yeah, he's
she's
like,
brought rats into my home.
yeah, he's like, I'm so sick of you fucking shaking and shit.
Emma Corrin, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want to fucking deal with this anymore.
Like they're having this serious conversation about how much he hates her, and then they look over and she's like, he's like, God damn it!
Look, she's
Stop.
getting attention again.
When
Get over yourself.
When is your man getting back? Like, can we like?
I just want to hang with my boy again. Yeah.
Thomas owes me big time for this.
Listen, we've all been stuck with like a friend's ex before in like a room where like, we really gotta just make some talk until he gets back.
It'd be so funny if you were like, hey man, I gotta go on a work trip. Can you like watch Gaia?
I'm gonna do that next time.
That's how it used
and
to
I'm gonna
be.
come back like really weird about it.
Yeah. Do you mind watching her? She's just like really forlorn right now. Like
one last shout out.
She's struggling with a bit of melancholy. Can you keep an eye on her?
The idea of having the vampire drink the blood from the chest is so fucking amazing and inspired. Cool. I can't believe that no one has done that before. That's such an incredible idea. Like,
yeah,
I
just goes for the neck, but now the chest, baby.
Dude, like right in the heart, just slurping. The sound of the slurping. Oh my God. Amazing. I love this movie. It's
great movie.
It just rocks. It like, don't overthink it. Yes, it unfolds as expected, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. Nosferatu is Drew and I's number 6 and Hunter's
number 8.
All right. We'll call part 1 there. That's the first half of our best movies, top favorite cinematic films of 2024. Stick around for part 2 for numbers 5 through 1. We'll see you there. Thank you for listening. Good party.
Goodbye.